Jaden Ivey has looked phenomenal throughout the preseason so far, and if you compare it to what he was doing last year, it almost looks like a completely different player. Now, obviously, it's just preseason. We don't want to jump the gun. We've seen plenty of players look good in the preseason, and then the regular season starts, and that production doesn't hold up. But there's a lot of promising signs in terms of how Jaden Ivey's being used, how it's really opened things up for him and allowed him to play seemingly a lot more freely than he was allowed to in the past. First and foremost, one of the biggest changes that we've seen from him in the preseason is just the simple fact that he looks very, very efficient as a scorer. That three-point shooting is starting to come up a little bit. And again, this is one of those things where we're going to have to wait and see if it holds up into the regular season, but it's looked really, really good in the preseason. He shot a career average of 33.9% from three on 4.8 attempts per night, but his catch and shoot stats are a lot better than that kind of low three-point percentage would lead you to believe. His rookie year catch and shoot three-point shooting was 37.4% on 112 total attempts, and his 2024 catch and shoot three-point shooting was 35% on 165 total attempts, so that's an average of 36.2% on catch and shoot threes. Now, obviously, super small sample size, but throughout the preseason, he shot 52.9% from three. I don't think that's going to hold up throughout the regular season. That would be insane. But it does seem like he's got a lot more confidence now taking these shots, and they're coming to him within the flow of the game. Now, one thing that I've really liked is what we've seen from him as a mid-range scorer in the preseason. Here, he's got Royce O'Neal kind of in isolation. He's got the empty corner. He's got the space cleared out, and he's just going to take him off the dribble. He's going to hit him with that really nice crossover going to his right. He gets Royce O'Neal moving backwards a little bit, and this is going to allow him to get into that space where he's able to just rise and knock down that fadeaway jumper. Now, on this particular possession, he's going to be coming off of what's called a wide screen. So Duren's going to come and set this screen on Booker, and this is going to allow Ivy to come over across the top and get the ball. And what's nice about from here, he's able to just get another screen and get downhill going to his left. Ivy's just so fast that he runs Booker right into this screen, and he's got Plumlee already far back in the paint in a pretty deep drop. Booker's going to reach out with that right hand and actually foul him. So he just rises up for the shot, he knocks it down, and he's going to the line now for the and one. He's looked comfortable when he gets that space coming off of a screen. Again, he's going to get a standard empty side screen over here from Stewart. He's going to drive right. He recognizes that Jones is going to be stuck behind him. He's got Plumlee in a very deep drop, so he just rises up and gets the easy points. He's bringing the ball up here. He's matched up against De'Anthony Melton, and Melton's actually going to get a little bit overzealous trying to swipe the ball away, and Ivy's going to turn this into an advantage for himself. When De'Anthony Melton kind of gambles a little bit, reaches a little bit too deep into the cookie jar, Ivy recognizes, okay, I've got Duren here screening. De'Anthony Melton's overplaying it a little bit. He's got Jackson Davis pulled up pretty high. He's almost playing to the level, but not quite there yet. So then he's just going to cross over and get going downhill. This puts Trace Jackson Davis in a 2-on-1 basically, but Ivy showcases some really nice difficult shot making. He's going to go right into that baseline jumper and he knocks it down. It's not the best shot selection in the world, but the fact that he's going to these shots more often and looking comfortable taking and making them is a really promising sign to me. And believe it or not, there were some indicators over his last couple of seasons that this mid-range scoring aspect of his game was going to play a bigger role in his overall offensive arsenal. His rookie season, he shot 41% from mid-range. His sophomore year, he shot 40% from mid-range, and league average from mid-range is right around 42%. So yeah, he's still below league average, but it's pretty unusual for guys to be in that 40% range as mid-range shooters in their first two seasons. That's something that usually takes some time to develop. And so the fact that Jaden Ivey already has this baseline 40%, he's that close to league average, makes me optimistic that we're going to see a lot more from him in this area going forward. Now, one of the most important aspects of Jaden Ivey's game to me is his rim pressure, because it kind of offsets with Cade Cunningham, who, as much as I like Cade, doesn't do a great job of getting downhill and initiating contact at the rim and drawing double teams to open things up for his teammates. This is something that Jaden Ivey does very well, even if the efficiency isn't quite where you need it to be yet. Jaden Ivey was in the 90th percentile in rim field goal attempt frequency last year. He went from 55% at the rim during his rookie year to 59% his sophomore year, so this is some really positive development from him. We're actually seeing some of that in the preseason. They're running these zoom actions for him that allow him to curl off of a handoff, get downhill, get a defender in a 2-on-1, and it opens up easy lobs for their bigs. That speed that's a core tenet of his game really puts defenses in uncomfortable positions where once Ivy gets by his primary defender or gets them backpedaling, it prompts that help defense waiting for him in the paint. And with a guy like Duren here, he can just dump it off and allow Duren to go to work from there. He really gets defenses to commit to helping on his drives. It makes life easier for the other guys on the floor. I'm excited to see what him and Duren do together now that it seems like Ivy's rim pressure is being prioritized a little bit more. A big question for Detroit is, how do Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey fit together? Cade Cunningham seems like he's going to be the #1 option. Jaden Ivey is potentially that #2, but that only really works if they can play off of each other and not both need the ball in their hands at all times. I think last year they were kind of robbed of some of that developmental time together where they could have been establishing more of a two-man game that complements each other's strengths and weaknesses. Last year, Detroit had Cade and Ivey on the floor together in 2,565 possessions, and they had a -6.1 net rating in those possessions. They had 2,004 possessions with Ivy on and Cade off. They were -11.1. And when they had Ivy off and Cade on in 1,735 possessions, they were -11.2. Obviously, a -6.1 net rating is not good, but it's certainly better than the -11 net ratings that they had when one of them was on and the other was off. It's clear that they are better when they are playing next to each other. And I think the bigger issue is the fact that they spent over 50% of all of their possessions operating separately when they should be spending the majority of their possessions operating together. And I think that's something that we're going to see change this year, especially with the new coaching change. If the goal for Jaden Ivey is to be the second guy next to Cade, then they need to be playing together. It's as simple as that. I'm a really big fan of this play that they ran for him against the Bucks. He's going to feed it to Duren up top in this delay, and they're going to set up what's called a zoom action where Ivy's going to come down. He's going to set this pin down screen for Cade. Cade's going to be able to come and get a handoff, and then from there, Duren and Cade are going to run into a simple pick and roll. Now, the important thing to pay attention to is Ivy's matched up against AJ Johnson, but when Duren and Cade start to get into this pick and roll, Prince is going to stay with Cade, Duren's going to be rolling, and AJ Johnson is going to think, hey, I need to slide over and tag the roller so that the drop big doesn't get burned. But all this is going to do is allow Ivy to just pop up into open space, and by the time Johnson actually starts to get there and close out, Ivy's already bursting to the basket, and it's not going to give Prince enough time to actually get off a good contest. Ivy gets it to fall, and he gets the and one. Cade's got Trayce Jackson-Davis pulled out. He's got the mismatch. And I like what the Pistons are going to do here. They're going to set up this off-ball action in the strong side corner where they kind of have this pin-in going on. But since Melton is showing just a little bit too much onto Cade, you're going to see Duren pop up a little bit. He points to Ivy when Cade looks at him, and Duren's going to come over and set this flare screen. And since Trayce Jackson-Davis is pulled out so far, Kuminga has to operate as the low man. So he's kind of stuck in a bad situation here because he doesn't want to leave the paint empty, but he's also got Ivy flaring out to the corner. And from there, Ivy's going to get the ball, and he just puts up the shot and drains the catch and shoot three. Ivy's bringing the ball up here, and him and Cade are going to get into what's called a get action. Ivy's going to pass to Cade, and Ivy's just so fast that plays like this are really easy to get some points off of because he gets Tyus Jones looking towards Cade when he makes that pass, and then Ivy just takes off. And so Ivy's able to get the ball. Tyus Jones is expecting this drive from Ivy. They're not really expecting him to shoot it. So what's great is he gets the ball, and he's got all of this space, and he's able to put up the shot, and he makes it. Now, if you remember that wide action that they ran earlier, they're going to do basically the same thing here. They've got Duren setting this screen. Ivy's going to come across the top, get the ball. But this time, Cade's going to take off towards the basket, and Ivy's going to be able to find him on the way there. And since Melton was so high up guarding Ivy and Trayce Jackson-Davis is playing to the level with Duren, it leaves the paint wide open for Cade to get downhill and finish. Now, even though the box score stats don't jump off the page in terms of improvement for Jaden Ivey, that doesn't mean the improvement hasn't been happening. This is his estimated plus minus on a 30-game moving average. He has most definitely improved despite the less than ideal situation that he's had to deal with. Detroit now looks like a somewhat competent basketball team. I fully expect Jaden Ivey to benefit from this newfound competency, and I think as long as Detroit continues to prioritize his development, they're going to benefit from it as well. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It helps the channel out a ton. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.